Good morning, everyone. Today is Sunday, December 15th, and I am coming to you from my awesome little house in honor of December 18th, which would have been my dad's 80th birthday. And this is no small event, mind you. I have been feeling really camera shy for some time now, quite some time, and I don't know exactly why that is. It could be that I have been going through a Barbara Streisand's transition in life and feeling very strongly that I only want this side of my face to be photographed because this side of my face is just too manly, and this part of me, it just has too much wisdom to put on a spotlight. Or it could be that I'm just going through a time when I don't want to be confined by the limited perception of what I may seem to be by way of a still frame. But anyway, regardless, I have decided to give all that up for this morning and resume my role. And can you believe that as soon as I said give all that, so here I am trying to tell you that I'm willing to give all this up and resume my role as a film star, and my camera has shut off spontaneously twice now, and I'm just saying, what the fuck? But anyhow, what I have for you this morning are two posts. One will be from the service itself, delivered as it was delivered in the service. And this portion that we're recording now is a reconstructed eulogy that I gave. We did not film it as it was happening in the actual funerary rite, as that is sacred space, and it does seem a little weird and perhaps inappropriate to put sacred space on just like it's just another TV show. But anyhow, I am going to reconstruct it here. So the next several frames will be that reconstructed eulogy, and thankfully you will not have to look at me the whole time because of course that is not the focus of the eulogy. So I just, again, before we begin, want to say thank you for all of you who have been with us, both physically in community and also in spirit. And for those of you who weren't able to join us physically at that memorial service, but were with us in spirit and wanted to be there, this post is for you. And I thank God for the life of my dad and the legacy of his life. And it is a legacy that lives on even after this transition. And there are those in the world who have yet to experience the legacy of his life. And I'm just really looking forward to those experiences they will be having through him, specifically medical students who will be learning from him in his passing. And I will address that more over the course of the post. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. God be with you, and it's good to see you. Okay, so I'd like to get started this morning by inviting you to close your eyes and settle into your breath and just take note with your mind's eye how you are feeling in your own body this morning as you observe your breath moving in and out through your lung space, as your mind-eye travels through your body, noting any feelings or sensations that may be coming up. And as you're observing, just take a few minutes to inquire within how you may be feeling about life. Perhaps you're making some kind of observation about how you feel in the course of this passing of Richard. Or perhaps you're just making some observations about your own life in general. So just take a few moments to go within and have that time, self to self. And as you take these next few breaths, I'm going to call out a few words and just make the observation of what kind of feelings or sensations each group of words stir up in you. How do they resonate with you? Do they speak to you? Do they have meaning or not? Okay, so here we go. Shadow, lightness, lucidity, obscure, red, green, absent, present, fluid, concrete, serious, light-hearted, clear, murky, unstructured, meticulous, enraged, jubilant, tormented, serene, purple, orange, despair, joy, lost, hopeful. And before you open your eyes, ask yourself, how is it possible to put all of these qualities of being into one character, into one personality that conveys a portrait of a cohesive sense of being? And as you open your eyes, looking at the next frame, take a moment to realize that we do this all the time. It is the contrast of character, and the contrast of color, the contrast of qualities of being that define the art form. And as a culture, we are really good at appreciating dramatic presentation of character, dramatic presentation of the art form. We appreciate, we admire, and we even pay to witness that through media. But sometimes when it comes to our ways of relating to each other in closeness of personal relationships and community, sometimes it is harder to appreciate that contrast, especially when it comes into conflict or discord with our own internal sense of being and the shifts that inherently take place within any whole persona. And when it comes to memorializing someone that we love, it is very easy to remember all of those qualities that they had that we approved of. And in grief, often it is challenging to heal that within which didn't always sit right with us as it related to a life circumstance. Recently, I had the experience of sitting in a cafe, and as I was sitting there minding my own business, I couldn't help overhearing two women at a table next to me. And one of the women was deep in a state of grief. She had recently lost her father. And her friend sitting with her as they talked was very dutiful and consoling to her friend as they reminisced about the loss and, of course, about the memories. And it was evident from their conversation that they were tried and true companions of the most treasured kind. And following a point of pause in the grief, the woman who had recently lost her father proceeded to continue the conversation by complaining about her grouchy old neighbor that lived next door, and she just wished that he was dead. And I couldn't help thinking, as I listened to them proceed with their conversation, had she forgotten that that grouchy old man was somebody's father? Did she remember that that grouchy old man was someone's grandfather? And once upon a time, that grouchy old man who has been suffering from advanced cardiac and neurological pathology, once upon a time, he had been someone's treasured baby boy. And as I witnessed their conversation, my thoughts went to my own father, my dad, the man who raised me. You see, when I was a little girl, I used to think that I was very lucky because I had two dads. I had my father, Barry, and I had my dad, Richard, the man who raised me. And from both of them, I have learned a lot of things. But with regards to Richard, I can say in these past 3 months since his passing, I have come to appreciate many things that he's taught me by way of his death transition. And I feel very thankful for this 3 months to have been, to have had a process that has been very untraditional in that he did not choose to have a funeral or a normal burial. He wanted to do things a little differently. And that natural unfolding of this transition has really provided a rich background, playground maybe, for many points of introspection. And one thing that I really appreciate about him is how well he demonstrates the life wisdom that you cannot judge a book by the cover. And he could not be defined completely by any singular snapshot that may have been taken throughout his lifetime. He lived a very long, full, and I would say rich life. And it occurred to me after he died that if you knew him as an older man, you really didn't know him. But at the same time, if you only knew him when he was a younger man, you really didn't know who he became. And there would be so many levels and subtleties of being that may have passed you by. That is to say, to understand the grandfather, you have to look at who he was as a father. And to understand the father, you'd have to have known who he was as the boy. You see, if you had only known him as an older man, you may have missed the time in his midlife when he was struggling with his own process of grief. And he fell into a great depression after the death of his son, Jonathan. And that experience changed him forever. And there were times in that first year that I really worried about him and wondered if he would make it to live another year after Jonathan passed. But he did make it, and he lived for many, many years following that life experience, that life tragedy, I would say. And Richard allowed the adversity he faced in life to open him to greater expressions of love. Now, don't get me wrong. There were times when he could get really angry. And you know what? There are times when I do the same. And there were times when we didn't agree. And we could have a really heated argument. But you know one thing about my dad? I always knew that he loved me. And when I had gone through my own tenuous life transitions, some very difficult moments in my own personal life, I always knew that I could go to him and that he would receive me and listen to me and support me in a very non-judgmental way. You see, once upon a time, I went to him and I said, Dad, I'm pregnant and I think I'm going to be going through this pregnancy by myself. Instead of judging me, criticizing me, and questioning me, he simply smiled and said, "Oh, good. I hope it's a girl. I have been praying for a girl." And when my daughter was born, less than a year later, he attended her birth, and he was her grandfather, but he was also the only father figure that she has known to present time. So I just want to thank you, Richard, Dad. I want to thank you for all of the love and the legacy of that love that will live on, and that does live on. Richard was a deeply spiritual man, and this goes beyond the orthodoxy of going to church. He was deeply prayerful, and he often referenced his spiritual life as that which helped him move through his own life challenges. And his spirituality was deep and esoteric, and I won't get into all of that right now, but what I will say is that it was a real gift to have a father who was embracing of his spirituality and was spiritually centered, and he was open and available to have conversations about spiritual life. That is a real treasure. He was a man who deeply valued family life and community and mentoring of children of all types, even those who came from adversity and those with special needs and those who are too often left aside, not only by their own families, but also by what should be community. Someone asked me recently, "Hey, Alexis, what's your favorite memory of your father?" And I had to stop and think. I couldn't come up with a single memory of him that was my favorite memory. Because you know what? I love all of them. Even the highs and even the lows. Because he has shown me how to be a strong woman, how to stand up for myself, how to stand up for what is right, for what is integrous. And he has shown me a way of opening my heart to greater expressions of love, even in times of increasing physical vulnerability. And when I think of Richard and the testimony of his life, I just see a lot of love. And I see a living legacy that I could only hope to leave in my own children. And so I thank you for taking this time to remember Richard with me and with my family. And I conclude here by saying the legacy of his life does continue. Richard did not want a traditional funeral or burial. Instead, his final wishes were to be donated as a whole body donation to medical science. And accordingly, he is currently in service to the Southern Illinois University School of Medicine, where he is being prepared to go into service with the fall of 2020 medical school class. And he will be a teaching cadaver for those medical students. And that is amazing to me. And I deeply admire him for his courage and for his generosity, that he did not stay attached to the body. He was free to go in soul, entrusting his body to the greater mind in the evolution of humanity and education of future physicians who certainly need to know functional anatomy, but perhaps more importantly, the development of compassion in physicians is essential to the trajectory of positive healthcare outcomes and the evolution of our human care approaches. So again, thank you for joining us this morning, and thank you, Richard, for the legacy of your love and the longevity of that love to infinity and beyond.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe thus far.